For those of you who are just joining us, welcome. Thank you for your presence today, this afternoon, at our first historic Albina Advisory Board meeting. We will begin shortly, just waiting just a couple more minutes for some of our board members to enter the virtual space, and we will get going. Folks are joining us here rapidly. I have a couple of names I don't recognize. You know, in this virtual space, we have to be careful. Want to make sure we're letting those who are participating into the room. Those who are joining us for the first time, thank you for joining us for the first historic Albina Advisory Board meeting. We'll just take one more minute or so, and then we'll get going with our meeting. Dr. Richard, pleasure to see you. Mr. Washington.
Here.
Pastor Richard, so good
Yes.
to see you as well. Thank you for joining us today. I see
My
you
pleasure.
there. Andrew. We're just going to give folks maybe one more minute to get the rest of the committee members in. One of our board members is ill. Please send your thoughts and prayers. She's recovering from COVID, so she won't be joining us on this first meeting. So please pray for Miss Estelle as she's recovering.
Monique, how you doing there, big fella?
Hey there, Mr. John Washington. How are you?
It's a good year, man. It's New Year.
Yes, sir. Well, Happy New Year to you. You look wonderful, sir.
Thank you very much, my brother. So do you.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Holt, how are you?
John, all is well. Good to see you.
Same
Glad
here.
you're here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Sister, always good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Mr. Washington. Good to have you.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, for you all who are just joining us and those who've been in the room, I want to thank you for your time this afternoon, for joining us for the first historic Albina Advisory meeting. My name is Erica Warren, and I am the facilitator for this wonderful work. I am honored to be a partner in Tri-Excellence with Dr. Holt, who I will introduce later in the meeting. But I'm so proud and privileged to be in this space with you today. As we get going, I want to just give you a few housekeeping tips as we are in this COVID environment and dealing with each other in this virtual Zoom platform. Just some quick reminders. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted to ODOT's YouTube page. It's also being live streamed at this time. So we appreciate you being lively, engaged, having your videos on so that we can interact as much as possible as we would in a open space. Those of you who have background noise, headphones could be helpful for you. That would help us to hear you and reduce some of the background noise. I'm sure you all are used to this, but at the bottom left hand of your screen, there is a microphone icon. And you can mute and unmute yourself if you have a speaking part today, board members, to give your contributions to the conversation. Also, there's your video right next to it. We hope that you would remain engaged and keep your video on so that we can interact with you. We will keep everyone muted, and HAAB members and support staff, you're able to unmute as you need to. Towards the center of your screen down there at the bottom is also a participants tab. So you have the opportunity to click that and see who is in the room with us, a number of board members as well as support staff for the I-5 Rose Quarter project. And that may be of some help to you. And I want to make sure that you all know, please keep your video on. Please keep yourself muted if you're not speaking. It will help us to reduce background noise. But we look forward to hearing from you and engaging in some robust conversation. Miss Natalie, you can advance. Thank you. I believe I've already mentioned, but we are live streaming and recording today. There will be an opportunity for public comment at each of our meetings. And so if you are a participant in the virtual audience and would like to give public comment, please use the raise hand feature if you would just wish to speak. It is a brief public comment period. So if you have more in-depth comment or questions, please feel free to email at the info@i5rosequarter.org, as well as you can call the number there on your screen and leave your comment there on the voicemail. If you are having any technical issues during this meeting, Grace, I love that name, is going to be available to you. Please note her number there. It will be important as I am not technical in any way. So Miss Grace is here to help us get through the technical difficulties. Before we get started, I just wanted to give a little deeper introduction of myself and get us going. I'm so honored to be here to serve with you all. As I said, I am one portion of Tri-Excellence. Dr. Holt is the visionary for this company. And I am a third generation Portlander, native. My paternal grandparents and parents moved here from the South, settled in Vanport and Lower Albina respectively, as many of your families. And in one of the whitest places in America, Albina was one of the most thriving Black communities, homeowners, places of worship, businesses, and I love Albina. That's why I'm here. I'm a product of two parents from this area who met in the 3rd grade at Boyce Elliott Elementary School, which is where Tubman Middle School is housed now. And they settled their family in Albina. Growing up on Borthwick and Skidmore, I spent many a time walking up and down the corridor, maybe to get music at the House of Sound or to see if I could sneak my cousin to grab a burger from me at Cleo's. It was a community that I think is very proud, and we knew each other and family names meant something. I don't have to educate this group on the masses of mostly Black homes and businesses and churches that were condemned to make way for a white corridor, or the construction of I-5, or Emmanuel Hospital that stole more wealth from our beloved Albina. I don't believe it's a secret to any of us that all these years later, our community is specifically targeted. It was intentionally separated by freeways, divided by politics. We have been pushed to the outskirts by gentrification and seemingly minimized to a memory. In light of all of that, in light of all the history, in light of all that has been lost, and with all that we're facing, even in light of what happened at our nation's capital this week, I believe we have to focus on the things that bring us together, to release some of the frustration and the hurt and the turmoil, indecision that we must feel. We have to be reminded, each of us, of our most basic common denominator, which is humanity. We are here in this virtual space to take action at this moment, a moment like none other in history. A historic moment, not just in identifying us with the past of Albina, but historic in doing something important to affect change for future generations. Each HAAB board member was selected because of their connection to the community, because of their service to the community, and because of their continued efforts to champion the cause of equity. And along with our shared lived experience, that is what connects us. Each of you are here because of our deep respect for you. And I believe that you're here because of your love for the community and because of a resolve not to be a wedge, but to once again be a bridge. I believe that's why you're here. It's definitely why I am here. And I am very excited about our charge moving forward. So I just want to welcome you to the space. I look forward to a lot of very robust and engaged, authentic conversation. Our meeting today is an introduction to the I-5 Rose Quarter Project. Some of you may be very aware of it. We're going to have space for public comment in just a moment. And then we'll have some background information, a little bit of design 101. Then we'll get deeper into the purpose of this body, governance, how we plan to move and operate. We'll talk a bit about the project values, and then we'll have some time for discussion before we move on. Natalie, you can move forward. Before we get started, I think it's appropriate that I introduced those who are in the room. And at this time, I'll just have you kind of briefly just acknowledge your presence here. We'll have an opportunity to engage further around who you are. Many of you know each other. But as I call your name, if you would just unmute yourself and acknowledge your presence in the room. Srinivasa Brown, who is the co-founder of Camp Elso and a deep, deep family ties to Albina.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited, so grateful and honored to be here with you all. And I look forward to meeting everyone and sharing and doing this work with you.
Great, thank you. Mr. Andrew Campbell, who was a former CAC member and Albina resident, deep ties, and who is joining us today.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see you all. I know a few faces on here, so I'm glad to be here.
Thank you so much. I don't know if Mr. Andrew Clark has joined us yet from Hue Development. I know he's planning to join us today. Mr. Keith Edwards, activist for over 4+ decades in this area, Local 48, and a member of the TriMet board. Has Mr. Edwards joined us in the room yet? We'll come back. I do not see yet Sharon Gary Smith. We're honored to have her with us, newly appointed president of the NAACP and longtime activist and community member. Miss Leslie Goodlow, I know that she will be joining us late. Native to the city and working in housing, serving the community for most of her career. Miss Estelle, as I mentioned to you earlier, she is out ill, so please, I know she would appreciate your thoughts and prayers. This man obviously needs no introduction, retired assistant police chief and over 3 decades of service to this community, Mr. Kevin Modica.
Greetings. I will keep it very simple. I am very happy to be here, be of service to the community. I think the effort is going to be important as it will determine the future for Albina for the next 100 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I won't say that I love this man more, but I appreciate him so dearly. Service and pastor in this area for my entire life, and I'll be 50 Friday. So please, Dr. I'm giving you more accolades. Pastor Richard Probasco.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor and privilege to be with you all. I see, I'm looking at the kind of the role of folks here. I guess I'm the senior guy. I've been around Portland all of my life, and actually next year I'll be 75. So, and I'm still involved in ministry here. Been at New Song Church for 44 years. So I've had a little bit of time here, and it's an honor to be on this committee.
Thank you for serving. I'm so glad you said yes. This gentleman, we have known each other for several years. He is the new HR and DEI professional director there at Multnomah County, has served for the Oregon Commission of Black Affairs, and is also an adjunct professor at Warner Pacific College, Mr. Dr. Carlos Richard. We can't hear you, Dr. Richard. Let's see. It looks like you're unmuted. Well, let's try to work out your technical issues. We still can't hear you. I'll come back. Haven't had the pleasure of meeting him personally, but I'm so excited to be able to work with this gentleman with 40 years in the community and economic development, serving on several boards. So we're honored to have you, Mr. Carl Talton.
Pleased to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Definitely not least, my friend there, Seoul Business District CEO and Flossin Media and longtime community activist, Mr. John Washington. I think you're muted there.
What an act to follow. You got me following Carl Tobin, and I love it. How you doing there, my brother? I didn't even know you was there. It's good to see you, Carl.
Always a pleasure, Dr. Washington.
Yes, sir. And it's a pleasure that I'm able to support and serve on this committee.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Dr. Richard, did we get your microphone together there? We're still unable to hear you. Okay, he's working it out. Again, I want to say thank you for your time and for your service. We're going to have a fun journey together. Ms. Natalie, you can move forward for me. Very, very quickly, because I know that you all understand how to work collaboratively. I want to share with you how I hope we will function and deal with each other as we engage in sometimes difficult conversation. Your voice matters, which means I always want to hear from you. I may call on you if I don't hear from you. I need your wisdom. We need your expertise in order to move this project forward. In that, we need you to speak your truth. You all are here because I knew you would speak your truth. With that, we want to make sure that you listen for understanding. This is going to be a challenge in some areas, and we're going to have to engage with each other in a way that is respectful. So we want you to listen as people are speaking and not just speak to be heard. We're hoping that we can deal with issues and not with people. This is a big lift. ODOT is doing things differently, and we want to be a part of that. And so there may be some conflict, maybe even in your past experience in dealing with agency, but we're hoping to walk into something new here. As we're dealing with those issues, expect that we're going to have some discomfort, but I trust all of you to remain respectfully engaged and not check out if it's something that you disagree with or not here, but that we can talk through all of those issues. And finally, to accept and expect that we're going to not be able to solve everything, all the ills that have happened to albino. We won't be able to solve them in this one project even, but that we're going to continue to stay connected, have authentic conversation, and make sure that we do something spectacular for our community. Ms. Natalie, you can advance the slides. At this time, I don't know if we do have anyone in the virtual space that would like to give public comment, but I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Natalie Warner, who's going to help us through that area.
Thank you, Erica. I'll just highlight that people, that members of the public are joining us through the live stream. And if they would like to provide a comment today, they will need to dial the phone number shown on the right side of the screen, 971-247-1195, and then enter the webinar ID and passcode shown on the screen here. And that is, the webinar ID is 821-708-5536, and then enter passcode 147631 and dial *9 to raise your hand. And then after we see your hand raised, we'll call on you and invite you to make your public comment. Public commenters will be limited to 1 minute today. If you'd like to make a more extensive comment, there are instructions on page, the bottom of page 1 of the agenda and onto page 2. And I am not seeing any hands raised at the moment, so I'm gonna maybe just give it a moment and then see if we get any, and then look to you, Erica, to help us move on if we're not seeing any.
Indeed. I'm sure that there will be opportunities. There will be folks in the community who will want to lend their voice to this conversation. And so in the future, if you would like to give public comment, please make sure you use the raise hand feature and then dial in, and we will be more than happy to hear from you. Natalie, I think it's okay that we move on, seeing no hands raised in the virtual space.
Excellent.
At this point, it is my pleasure to introduce to you, most of you know him, and this is Brendan Fenn. He's the Director of Urban Mobility for ODOT, and he's going to share some background information in regards to the project with you.
Great. Well, thank you, Erica. And I guess I can see, since my box is lit up, that you all can hear me. So appreciate that. Appreciate all of you. Thank you for being here. I see some familiar faces there. Good to see everybody. As Erica mentioned, again, Brendan Finn, I'm the Director of the Urban Mobility Office. The Rose Quarter Improvement Project is nested underneath this office. And I'll talk a little bit more about that very briefly today. But what we really want to do is get to work. But first, just want to extend my gratitude to all of you on behalf of the agency, on behalf of Oregon Department of Transportation, to this esteemed group that I know appreciate your time putting into this as we use your expertise, as we really pivot the intentionality of this project to reflect our values around diversity, equity, and inclusion. This starts with an acknowledgement that the construction of Interstate 5 through Albina, along with other renewal efforts, as Erica mentioned, decimated the thriving neighborhood that once was the heart of Oregon's Black community, Albina. The Rose Quarter Improvement Project, with it, there is an opportunity to flip the script, to have a public works project to reflect the historically impacted community, addressing the past wrongs by centering the project on the voice of the Black community that are connected to Albina. The Executive Steering Committee, along with ODOT, has developed a set of values that will guide the project. These are all the most important of those, and the one that's most foundational is the one that we've accepted and created around restorative justice. But we're realistic. We know, as Erica mentioned, this project cannot repair all past harms, but with your guidance, it has the potential to be a catalyst for community and economic development. This will require partnerships and community buy-in to leverage this investment and reconnect the Albina neighborhood. ODOT's Urban Mobility Office is convening that table at the Executive Steering Committee level so regional partners can join us in addressing these harms to maximize the benefits to the Albina community and maintain consistency with larger community vision. We acknowledge and own the skepticism that's felt by a number of our partners that have declined to continue to participate in this process. Trust cannot be built overnight. It must be earned by actions, not empty rhetoric. We may not get it 100% right always, but we're going to continue to show up and be driven by the values that we've accepted. The establishment of this board, the work of the independent cover assessment team you'll learn about, and unlocking the historic economic opportunities for disadvantaged business enterprises, that represents our first set of actions. It is our hope that your experiences in the community and your connections with the community will unearth new opportunities, ones that would not come to fruition with traditional community advisory processes that have not served us well. We are committed to doing things differently than they've done in the past. I look forward to returning to the future board meetings to discuss how the Rose Quarter Improvement Project fits into a bigger system-wide approach overseen by the Urban Mobility Office. That's going to reduce good congestion, improve air quality, and provide greater economic development opportunities for Oregonians. With that, I want to let you start your work with heartfelt appreciation for lending your time and expertise. And I'd be remiss not to recognize the exceptional efforts put forth by Erica Warren and Dr. Stephen Holt of Tri-Excellence. Without their work to convene this table, this opportunity would not be possible. So I want to give them my thanks. With that, Erica, I want to turn it back to you. And I think we're going to go over to Megan to talk a little bit more about the project. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Brendan. I appreciate it. Appreciate your willingness to do something different and to take the darts when people wonder why. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to Megan Channel. She is the director of this project for the I-5 Rose Quarter, and she wants to share with you. We want to give you just a brief overview of how we got here and what we're doing to move forward. So with that, Miss Megan.
Thank you, Erica, and thank you, members of the Historic Albina Advisory Board. I'm Megan Channel. I'm the project director with ODOT for the Rose Quarter Project, and I'm just honored to be here with you this evening. And again, I want to extend a thanks to each and every one of you for joining us in this significant opportunity that we have ahead. As Erica mentioned, I'm going to do a brief project overview. How did we get here? Where are we going? And kind of then honing in on your role. And, you know, I think first and foremost, but before I get to that, why are you here? You've heard this from Brendan, but, you know, when I-5 was built, the community wasn't given a voice. Homes and businesses and the community was destroyed. And so we're here with you to make sure that we don't repeat that harm of the past and to provide a voice for historic Albina as we move forward. This project is still at its beginnings. I don't think that it's currently all that it can be quite yet. And so this is where we need your help, your expertise, and your partnership. So I see the Historic Albina Advisory Board as playing a critical role in helping us not only design the project, but in building the partnerships that we need to catalyze the community development opportunities, and just overall really looking forward to working with every one of you on those innovative solutions. So if you go to the next slide, Natalie. Project history. So just a bit of background on how we got to where we are today. So this project has undergone decades of planning work to address the longstanding safety and operational needs on I-5 from a transportation perspective. Understanding the history of the project area, one of the guiding factors in addressing these transportation needs was to refine the project in a way that refined the scope of the freeway improvements to still address these safety and traffic needs, but in a way that minimized the need for additional private property or a private right-of-way, that reduced costs to make the project the most effective with public dollars, and reduce adverse community effects, again, to not repeat the harms of the past. So through this process and decades of planning work, I think most significantly, ODOT partnered with the City of Portland in 2010 and 2012 to link up transportation planning with land use concurrently. And here, over 70 design options were considered with the community to help us get to the current design that we have today. So this process culminated in the adoption of one recommended design concept by both the Oregon Transportation Commission and City Council back in 2012. And so this is the recommended design concept that we're carrying forward and really using as our starting point as we move into the design of the project. So next slide, please. I want to talk about the need for the project. And before I get into the wonky transportation components, I want to first acknowledge just the significant opportunity that we have as part of the project, an opportunity to reconnect Albina and an opportunity for economic development. I think if this is done right, again, this can be a catalyst, transportation investments can be a catalyst for economic growth for the Albina community, for North and Northeast Portland and our region. And this is where we need your help in getting it right. So in addition to this, there's also longstanding transportation need. There's an ongoing need to address congestion in the Portland metro region. And the congestion that we see in this area not only has impacts within Portland, but to our state as a whole. I-5 within the Rose Corridor is one of the worst bottlenecks in our states and actually is ranked 19th worst freight bottleneck in the nation. This segment also sees the highest crash rate for an urban interstate within Oregon. And so the bottleneck and these frequent crashes lead to nearly 12 hours of congestion each day. So all of this makes travel unreliable, as well as hindering and making it challenging for the movement of goods through freight and the movement of people on our system. So moving forward, the project includes a number of improvements. You're going to hear more about each of these in detail later in the presentation, but I just wanted to frame up the elements at a high level, but fear not, you will learn more about these in more detail in just a few minutes here. So the project includes I-5 mainline improvements. So if you look to the right of your screen, you'll see numbers 5 and number 6. This includes the auxiliary lanes. Those are lanes that when you get on a highway at one entrance, it's that lane that carries forward to the next exit. You can get off to be able to make that movement from one entrance to the next exit without having to merge into the 2 through lanes of traffic. The mainline improvements also include shoulders. And so those elements would be added to I-5 between I-84 to the south and I-405 to the north. And the I-5 mainline improvements also include a relocation of the I-5 southbound on-ramp right in front of Moda Center. The project also includes highway covers. As you can see, number 1 in pink. These are new, wider bridges that replace the current roadway crossings over I-5, so Broadway and Weidler and Williams and Vancouver. And the wider bridges will provide new community space. So this is particularly an area where your input is just going to be paramount in helping us to define the right uses and the right design of the covers. The project also includes new crossings over I-5. So you can see numbers 2 and number 4, kind of new crossings both to the north and the south of the Broadway-Weidler interchange, including a new roadway to the north, a new pedestrian and bicycle bridge to the south. And coupled with all of this, shown in number 3 with green, the project also includes a number of local street improvements. I know one of the key questions that came up when we met with our former Community Advisory Committee and Mr. Washington and Mr. Campbell, I know that you were participating on that. So thank you again for joining us as part of this board. But I know when you were part of that committee, one of the key questions that came up around was, what project elements can this group inform? And a concern that the group was convened, to choose just a paint color of the wall instead of helping the project team build a house. So I want to assure you that the Historic Albina Advisory Board has a significant voice in informing what this project becomes. We truly don't know what's going to go on top of the highway covers and what that design will be. We know the project includes the highway covers, but what goes on top, how they intersect with the surrounding area, this is what you're being asked to inform. We also don't know how the local streets will be designed. What are the community priorities around sidewalks, lighting, bicycle facilities, roadway connections? Really need your help in informing that work. And we also don't know how these transportation improvements can best support the future redevelopment of the area. And so your expertise and partnerships are going to be needed to help realize that success. I do want to be open that, as I said, the project includes the auxiliary lanes and the shoulders on I-5 to address longstanding safety and operational needs. So that's not an area of focus for this board. We're really asking for your focus on the elements that I described above, again, bringing your voice to the critical community building efforts. So next slide, I want to just highlight a timeline here. High level timeline overview. So the planning and environmental phases for this project are completed. The environmental phase was wrapped up actually at the end of last year, so November of 2020, with the publication of the environmental assessment in partnership with Federal Highway Administration. So we're now in the project design phase, working collaboratively with you as we work towards construction beginning in 2023. On the next slide, I get into a little bit more detail, kind of on the design arc of the project. Just want to note that we are at the 20% design phase. So this is typical of a project having just gone through a planning and environmental phase. So what does this mean? It means that we know the project footprint and we know the main scope elements of the project, but we don't know the details of each of those. So moving forward, we need to establish the design concepts of those scope elements, and that's happening as part of the 30% design mark, which takes place later this year in kind of fall to late 2021. So I'll just note that 2021 is a pivotal year for our community work together to inform these design concepts. And then as we move forward from the 30% design mark, we have that continued process of refining. So a little bit later, you'll also hear from the independent highway cover team, as you see that noted on the design arc here. You'll hear a little bit more from them and the work that they have planned around the highway covers and then how that fits in. So then as we look into 2022 and 2023, really a time for design refinement and construction beginning in 2023. So with that, I am going to call upon Steve Drahota, who's our design lead for the project, to go a bit deeper into the project elements and more detail about what we'll be asking of the HAAB around input for each of those. So Steve, I will turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you, Megan. I want to say I appreciate being here. I had one opportunity to speak to the CAC in the past, and I'm looking forward to having, frankly, ongoing monthly conversations about all these detailed elements. Fully admit I'm an engineer, so I'm not the best public speaker, and if I use vernacular or language that gets really technical, please someone stop me, because I know from my wife's standpoint, she tells me all the time to stop talking that way. So I'm here to give a really brief overview and a slightly deeper dive, although Megan did a fantastic job of describing those different elements of the project, so I probably won't go that far on that. I do want to focus on one particular element today, but before we start all that, just ground all of us in the central part of the project, the existing area for Broadway Weidler, Vancouver Williams, this sort of grid element that lives above I-5. And we understand that from this helicopter view, the highway itself severed the community. So in the whole point of restorative justice from the designer's standpoint is how do we recreate, restitch, reconnect the community across using this highway cover. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this unfolds over time. So in this particular view, imagine, as you can see in the picture of the existing condition, looking at Moda Center on the left towards Willamette River, sort of at the top, and seeing how this local street network crosses over the highway below. So if you focus right on the middle side, next slide, please, you can see how the concept of this highway cover has unfolded. And I want to emphasize that it's merely a concept. All the detail that's shown on this graphic, whether it's the patterns of the sidewalks or the landscaping, even the shape of the highway covers here, you can see a little bit of that yellow in the middle, presumes two highway covers. Well, it could be that through the conversation with the independent cover assessment team and your input ultimately to the executive steering committee, it could be a single highway cover, which could promote a different set of uses and benefits, both on the highway cover and to the sides of it. This project really is a fantastic opportunity to enhance the entire area in and around this sort of street grid system for all users. While we know that us in the transportation sort of business are here to create a highway cover that connects streets, it's really about providing an opportunity, setting the table for future development, both on the highway covers and adjacent to them. And so that part of this graphic is some assumptions on buildings. You can see those sort of sketched buildings in here, but we don't know how exactly the opportunities for redevelopment are going to unfold. This is where your input through the ICA ultimately to a decision on what should be placed in and around this site is going to be so important. All right, next slide, please. So this is the one slide that I think that Megan did a fantastic job. I will avoid going into too much technical detail. I think the most important part is the message about how the HAAB will be informing every single one of these 6 different elements in some way or another at some time or another, and how your input is going to shape the outcome of this project. So when you think of the pink, the highway covers, I'm just going to go from left to right. So when you think of the highway covers, number 1, your role in really helping to inform through the ICA, the Independent Cover Assessment Team, of what should be on top of it, based on the community preferences, how to re-energize and re-engage and create a thriving community again. All of that input is going to be really important to the types of uses on top, and therefore the highway cover structures below, and then what happens adjacent to them. So it's really your input on those spaces that are going to help drive the outcome. Number 2 is this blue line towards the top that shows this Hancock-Dixon crossing. Really, that is to create another crossing over I-5, and exactly how the shape of that connection fits in, where it goes, where it terminates, and the space associated with it is going to be up to input by you. Number 3 is the whole plethora, the grid of green streets. And we're going to be asking you guys questions about preferences on spaces between pedestrian space, bicycle space, how to make each of the different intersections safer, how do you use the appropriate lighting, where is parking appropriate versus maybe having a bike lane versus having some other sort of shared use paths, how best to landscape, how best to create community art opportunities. All of these different things we're going to get into as time progresses. First and foremost, I think the most pressing question is going to be on the highway covers, but down the road as the whole project unfolds, we'll be asking for your explicit input on how best to make these streets more livable. Number 4 is a particular crossing point, the Clackamas pedestrian bicycle overcrossing in purple, as it's a little closer to the Moda Center. And there's some particular elements about where that is placed and how the curve of it looks. Even the structure type itself is going to be a variable that we need to get your input on. Right now, it's basically a fat line on a map with a concept of what a bridge could be for bicycles and pedestrians, but that's all it is. So there's a lot of opportunity to create the look and feel of that, and how does it fit best into the community. And then number 5 and 6, again, just like Megan was saying, we're not going to ask you to design the highway components themselves, but we are going to ask how best can we accommodate these transition zones, the landscaping and possibly sound walls or other masking elements to blend the I-5 area into the community. So we're going to be focusing on those kind of questions for you guys. All right, next slide, please. All right, so one of the things that we realize is one of the largest outstanding questions is, how does this project impact all of the different properties in and around the project site? And so this is a very early concept that shows where this highway cover area, shown in purple or pink, magenta, I can't tell what color it is anymore, right in the middle of the highway, and then the various ways in which the properties are impacted by both the construction phase and because of this opportunity. So the different colors that are shown on this map start with those in yellow, some sort of building or facility displacement. So as of this point, those items shown in yellow is the extent of the buildings that would be demolished or repurposed into something else. We're really not expecting any changes unless there's a substantive scope change that we would work back through this group to extend any of the building impacts beyond those shown in yellow right here. And really it comes down to 4 different buildings in and around the project site and some billboards.
And Steve, I'm gonna chime in really quickly there. So the ones that are shown in terms of building impacts, they're businesses, and just want to clarify that there's no homes or residences that are impacted or displaced by the project.
Yes, absolutely. And where those businesses rest are on top of areas for remnant lands outside of the highway cover that is ripe for redevelopment, for repurposing, for something else. And so the question is, how best can those lands shown in green work and be compatible with whatever the use is on top of the highway cover itself? And then those areas shown in light blue are really areas needed for construction, but not needed over the long term to support anything beyond just a construction stage. So think of it as rental area. So with that, all of this is really the way, how do these different spaces in and around the highway cover work? And the ICA team is gonna work with you to create a community vision for the area and ultimately work with you to recommend the best use of this highway cover space. And so with that, I'll pause.
I have a question. With the post-construction remnant lands, who currently owns that? Is that public land? Is it private land? And when it says becomes available, does that mean it does not go back to the owner that is the current owner? It becomes newly available? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. And Megan, would you like to take that, or would you like me to answer that for you?
Steve, go for it, and I'll chime in if needed. But I think
all right, perfect.
Take it.
Yeah. So part of the construction process is needing to create, for example, temporary streets as detours to get around. And so that's partly the reason for the need to displace those businesses right along the property edge. When you do that, ODOT acquires not just the building, but the entire piece of property. ODOT's not in the business of owning property forever, and so it becomes remnant land that becomes available for some other resale, repurpose after the project is over. And so that's what's represented by these green, these places that ODOT has to purchase or acquire as part of the right-of-way process to construct, but then there's an opportunity to do something with it. And so that's where the question is, how best to repurpose or reuse that remnant area, that remnant land that ODOT doesn't need. And so that's one of the fundamental questions. So it's really this space, think of it as more than just the highway cover area. It's the highway cover plus these remnant parcels that all have to work together for redeveloping, restitching the area. And so with that, Megan, please correct anything or add more.
No, I think you covered it. You covered it well. And I'll just emphasize, that's definitely be a conversation that we want to bring back to this board for input just on strategy and potential opportunities for those spaces in the future.
Thank you.
Steve, I do have one slide. I think I'm wrapping up on benefits and then a quick round out on some key staff. Erica, I'll look to you as our facilitator. Shall I continue on with that?
Yes, we have a few moments. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, next slide, Natalie, please. So the project elements that Steve and I have described are expected to have a number of benefits. I think, first and foremost in building the project is going to provide near-term economic opportunities, specifically contracting opportunities, with maximizing utilization of small, local, and minority-owned businesses through construction contracts. And so this is what the project can directly provide. And our goal is to set these opportunities up in a way that helps support and build a pipeline for longer-term wealth generation that can really be achieved in partnerships with other organizations and community organizations. The project also provides new space, as you've heard, on top of the highway covers and in surrounding properties where it's needed for construction. And these can be used for future redevelopment. And so this is what the project directly provides. And so we hope that this also spurs additional partnerships, additional redevelopment in the area. And again, this is where you, as of the board, where your expertise comes into play to guide these broader benefits. And then from a safety and traffic perspective, the project elements are anticipated to reduce frequent crashes on I-5 by up to 50% and smooth traffic flow, making travel more reliable and reducing the delay that the traveling public and freight see when they're driving through. So the next slide, I just want to do a quick kind of who's who with key staff here. So you've met Urban Mobility Office Director Brendan Finn. I just want to note that our Urban Mobility Office Deputy Director is Della Mosier, working directly with Brendan. I am the project director for the Rose Quarter project level. I just want to acknowledge my deputy director for the project, Monica Blanchard. You will likely see her at future meetings. And then April De Leon Galloway, I want to introduce, and she's actually here today to say a few words. She is our communications and public involvement manager. So April, welcome you to introduce yourself.
Awesome, thank you, Megan. I know some of you may have received some refreshments for this evening as we're asking you to meet over the dinner hour. So I just wanted to acknowledge a member of our communications team, Natalie, who coordinated those. And those are from Mississippi Chef. So I hope that you enjoyed those. As Megan mentioned, I'm the Rose Quarter public involvement and communications lead. I'm really super excited to see you guys here. I would love to promise that from here on out, it's going to be a piece of cake. But you know, it's going to be really rewarding work, I think, and I'm really looking forward to working closely with you guys. And you'll hear a little bit more about our values, the project values, a little later on. But the transparent decision making and community informed project value in particular means that we are moving forward in a way that really focuses on historically underrepresented communities and engaging in meaningful two-way dialogue. That means that we want to meet the community where they are and minimize barriers to participation. So with that, I hope to bring to this group community engagement approaches and communication so that you can be informed as well as you are making your recommendations for the project and thinking through opportunities. I want to also collaborate with you as we move forward on best ways to engage the community and come together on solutions. So thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, April. And then you will be meeting Dr. Stephen Holt, who's our strategic engagement advisor and also facilitates the executive steering committee a little bit later, as well as Janelle Bell, who is another one of our strategic advisors and facilitates the community oversight advisory committee. And you have been introduced and are being led by the wonderful Ms. Erica Warren. So that rounds out our project leadership team as it relates to the HAAB. So I think I'm pausing. Erica, I'll turn it back to you.
Indeed. Thank you, Megan. I just want to, we're pretty close to on time. We're doing well. So I wanted to give an opportunity if there were any of the other committee members that had questions in regards to the brief Design 101 or anything else that Megan or Brendan may have shared. We'll have an opportunity to engage at another point as well. So, but I did want to open the floor just briefly.
Hi, Erica's Leslie Goodlow.
Hello. Yes.
So I had a couple questions about the staff. And I know that wasn't part of the presentation, but since that was the last thing, it's like, so how much work have you all done with Black people or in Northeast Portland? And when you talk about community, April, what kind of community work have you done? I just want to know, it's always a question when I see staff, and all of the staff are non-Black, that are heading up a project that is primarily dealing with Black people. So if you all could speak to what your experience has been. I know you got lots of consultants that are Black, but what's your experience in actually dealing with and working with Black people?
Yeah, I can definitely address that, Leslie. Thank you for that question. Back in 2017, we realized how important it would be to I guess customize, the approach, the engagement approach, and to do things differently. And so conducted 17 interviews with individual stakeholder interviews in the African American community that helped to kind of shape our engagement moving forward. And that was through the environmental phase. And through that phase, we did interface with many Black serving institutions and community-based organizations. We also held Black African American discussion groups in 2019 for altogether, I forget the total number of participation, but there were, if I remember correctly, right around 40 to 50 participants in those focus groups. And that was probably, I think, an even bigger voice in how we further shaped our engagement for the community moving forward. That has, we heard from the focus groups that the Black community was really interested in ensuring that their voices were elevated through this process. And so that was the kind of the beginning point of a formation for the Historic Albina Advisory Board, although I must give credit to Ms. Erica Warren and to Dr. Holt for really kind of helping us to get to where we are today regarding this board. I don't know if I maybe missed anything, Megan, if you had anything to add.
Oh, can I jump in?
Yeah. Sure, go ahead, Brendan.
Hey, Leslie, how are you?
Hey, Brendan.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, sir.
Well, good question. We got to own what this agency was and where we're trying to take it, and the faces that have been a part of the team and who are a part of it now. I know you and I worked together for a few years and did some great work. I won't go through a lot of the things that I've worked on. The one that I remember, while it was symbolic, but I think really important, back in 2005, working with the Albina Ministry Alliance to rename Portland Boulevard Rosa Parks Way. When Dan led that, Dan Saltzman, excuse me. I say that name, Leslie, because I know you know him. So I think I have a pretty good sense of the community, and just the work that we've done, the work that we did with the Housing Bureau, that I know you were a part of, that Dr. Holt was a part of, to create the preference policy. Some of the work that I think was the toughest for me was when I was chief of staff to the police commissioner for the city of Portland. There was a tragedy that happened with Aaron Campbell, and that was a tough time where my boss, we took on the police union and how things were being responded to regarding that tragic event that happened. And I remember Jesse Jackson coming to Portland and being in the room with him and Sam Adams and some of the Albina Ministry Alliance. So I probably have a few other experiences to share, Leslie, but I know we know each other. And I think that I would like to express on behalf of this team that I'm helping lead right now, that while not everyone has deep ties into the community, that's why we want to empower you and this board and try excellence, because you do. And we hope to earn your trust in that regard.
Well, thank you, folks. I'm just going to jump in real quick, and I don't want to take up all the time, but I did send an email last night and my concern about getting documents the day before. And I would hope that going forward that we will have a few more days in order to review documents. I don't want to say that the intention was to be disrespectful, but it's not considerate to give people less than 24 hours of notice on documents and then expect them to be at all able to discuss them at a meeting the next day. I know that we're just standing this group up and as things are moving forward, but I just make a request as a fellow government employee. And I know that sometimes things don't go the way that you think they're going to go, but to respect the time of folks that are volunteering on this committee and give them sufficient notice on documents so that they can be ready to go when the meeting starts.
Yeah, absolutely, Leslie. And I appreciate the feedback that you provided to the team earlier and today as well. So we will strive to do better in that regard. And and to your first question, my experience has been on the Rose Quarter project here over the past 4 years. I have a lot to learn, of course, and I know this is the first time that you and I are meeting, and I've given you no reason to trust me, but I hope as we move forward through the actions and our work on this committee that we can build that level of trust to move forward. So thank you.
This is Serena. And if we're going to start building trust, we should just come out and say that there's no Black folks working on this project within ODOT. That is you all, so that we can just start playing and just be honest as we start doing the work so that we don't waste anyone's time. And that we're here because of that, so that we can just move on and get to the work. Because to me, that's where trust starts, when we're being intentional and we're being honest about what needs to happen and who's working on this from TriMet as we start to move forward. And I too am a government employee, but I'm also lived in this community practically all my life. That's right. And it's down in the Albina district. So now that that's it. Yeah. And then I agree with Leslie. Can we get the information at least 2 weeks in advance? Because we all work, we have jobs and other responsibilities, so that we can be versed and ask the right questions as we're starting to move this project forward.
Absolutely. Serena, thank you. I'm so glad that you were able to join us. I also see Sharon Gary Smith in the room as well. Dr. Richard had his hand up. I know Andrew, as well as Mr. Edwards did. I want to honor that you all have something to share. I'm going to ask Dr. Richard if he would go ahead and unmute and share. Andrew and Keith, if you all will give me just a moment, I will come back to you, but I want to make sure that I'm being a good steward of your time. So I will give you an opportunity in just a moment. So Dr. Richard, if you would go ahead and ask your question.
Ms. Erica, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to participate in this process and echo the sentiments of my colleague, Serena. With respect to her words, I had some of the same observations, being that Albina is no longer a Black community. My hope is that this project doesn't turn into a monument just to remember what once was, and not fully honor a partnership as we begin to discuss some of the land use that is closely associated and directed to this project. But I'm happy to be here. My question is simply this. Brendan, you mentioned in your opening statements about a restorative process. And I'm not sure if that was just part of a larger conversation, but my interest is, since you mentioned restorative process, before this project began or it was fully underway, was there a restorative process done with members of this community, whether current or former, to talk about how going forward with this project looks like in spite of past harms? And if there was not a restorative process in terms of meeting with folks, why? Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dr. Richard, and I'm happy to address that question, because one of the things that we've had to do since there's been a bit of a pivot In fact, a 180 by this agency, and that's why I joined it. I've been on board for about 10 months, Dr. Richard. I've left my post with the governor's office as her transportation policy advisor because I was convinced that this agency was committed to doing things differently, committed to their values around equity and climate. I wanted to be a part of that. These projects have destroyed neighborhoods across the United States, and I want to be a part of how we bring them back together. And when I saw that was happening here, I pursued this position. But you're right, it was not those values, that value set, and that intentionality was not brought previously. And so I know I speak for the project team that everyone that's on this, regardless of where they have come from in the past, are committed to that. And it drives us, it drives me. That's why I wanted to get involved with this. And I know that comes from the leadership of the Oregon Transportation Commission, and Vice Chair Simpson, who heads up the Executive Steering Committee for, Lando Simpson, who heads up the steering committee for us, who you'll be getting to meet. So, there's an ownership, and that's a part of this whole process. It's going to be painful. No, there wasn't that intentionality, and we need to have it now. And we're starting late, but as Megan and Steve have articulated, it's not too late. And that's why I'm just thankful that you're all here for us to try to regain that trust.
Thank you, Brendan. Again, Andrew, Mr. Campbell, and Mr. Edwards, if you all would remember, jot down your question. I want to get back to you first when we have an opportunity to engage again. Natalie, if you would forward me to the next slide, please. Megan, I'm going to have you come back and just briefly, we're going to talk about purpose. I'll take an opportunity to shift a bit so that we have more time for dialogue during that kind of governance discussion. But Natalie, the next slide, please. And Megan, I will give it to you.
Thank you, Erica. So the purpose of the Historic Albina Advisory Board, first and foremost, is to elevate voices of the Black community and those with historic ties to historic Albina. A successful outcome for this work is that the project reflects community interests and values as informed by you, and that historic Albina benefits from the investments of the project, both directly and indirectly with future partnership and opportunities. So for the next slide, you will see this slide again later, and Dr. Holt will be walking through this with Erica. But I just want to kind of acknowledge the project governance and share this as an initial framer, building from the purpose of this board on the decision-making framework for the project. So the Historic Albina Advisory Board, you bring community perspectives into this decision-making process, informing and providing recommendations to the Executive Steering Committee. The Executive Steering Committee then takes this board's feedback into consideration as they provide the project recommendations to the OTC for the decisions. What I want to emphasize here is that the design elements come to you as the Historic Albina Advisory Board first, before they go to any other public committee. So you're the first to have the conversations with us and provide the recommendations and how we can pivot and shape how we move forward. When we think about the spectrum of public engagement, there's multiple different levels of engagement. On the one hand, you can start with informing, to consulting, to involving, to collaborating, to deferring. So on one end of the spectrum, you can take the form of informing, where the purpose is just to provide information to the public, keep the public informed. On the other end of the spectrum, engagement levels can take the form of deferring decisions to the public. So I just want to be open and honest in our sort of where we are in that spectrum. So we're in that kind of collaborative level, which is above informing, above consulting, above involving. And here at this collaboration level, we're partnered with each of you in the aspects of the design, including exploring options and identification of preferred solutions. And so in this, our promise to you is that we look to you for advice and innovation in formulating our solutions, in incorporating your advice and recommendations into the decisions to the maximum extent possible. So your recommendations, again, will inform the Executive Steering Committee and ultimately the Oregon Transportation Commission's decision on how we move forward. So on the next slide, just want to hit on a couple items here. And I think Erica will go in to more detail on roles, responsibilities. But the advisory role of this board is really around 3 key items as we know them today. The highway cover vision and what the uses will be on top, community connections, and redevelopment partnership opportunities. So with that, Erica, I'll turn it back over to you to keep the conversation going.
Indeed. Thank you, Megan. Next slide, please. I think this is background information, and I would love to shift, if I can, quickly so that we can engage in a little bit more dialogue. Leslie, to your point, and others, it is my commitment to you that we have materials in advance. As you all who work for government agencies understand some of the kind of behind the scenes turnarounds, because of the frequency of our meetings every 3 weeks, we are trying to stay on top of that and plan accordingly to get you all of that information. The slides that you all received, we want to make sure that you have them just in case you have technical difficulties on the day of the meeting so that you can still follow along if you have to call in. But other information, your point is well taken in regards to getting you information so that you all can be authentically engaged with us. We've mentioned in emails before, 2 to 3 hours. We want to be respectful of your time, and then there will be a meeting summary provided to you following the meeting. I would like to move to the next slide, please, Ms. Natalie. You all received a copy of the draft charter. I don't want to get into the details of that tonight. Please take an opportunity over the next 3 weeks between now and our next meeting to take a deep dive into those things. Vision and purpose, we've talked a little bit about what we would like to see, what decisions the HAAB will be instrumental in affecting. Dr. Holt will in just a moment talk a bit about the vision and the values. Obviously, membership, you all are here. We appreciate you for committing to this work. It is a work, we appreciate that. I will pose a question at a later time, but decision-making and accountability, how you all would like to govern yourselves, and we can have that conversation deeper as we look into the charter in the next meeting. Roles and responsibilities, again, I believe that we've kind of been discussing that over time. You all are seasoned in the community. You all have served. You understand the responsibility of serving on a board. One of them, this is a public meeting. Again, realize you are a public official if you don't work in that capacity as some of the others. Our email communications, our chat, all of those are open to the public. So you want to be conscious of that. We will be enabling some of the chat features as well to allow us to communicate quicker, to jot thoughts. Those comments will be incorporated into our meeting notes so that the transparency of our meetings are available for all who are wanting to be a part of this process. There is those in the community who are not a part of the process who want to know more, they can request public records. So again, just cautioning us to understand the level of your commitment to this board and your service to the community. Lastly, there is a training that's required by all members of Oregon boards and commissions. And it is an annual training and they'll need to be completed by the end of 2021. You can do that on your own time. We will provide the links and information to you so that you are well within our 12 months to get that completed. And we appreciate your commitment because we realize it's not just the meeting times, there is outside involvement, study, and participation to be able to authentically engage in dialogue during this process. Next slide, please. Quickly, I just want to share with you, there'll be some other opportunities. One, we are looking to rebrand the project and have hired a BIPOC firm to help us through that process. And she will be looking to engage with some of you all for a brief interview one-on-one to give feedback on elements to the new look, and then she'll provide an opportunity for this group as well as the Executive Steering Committee to weigh in on what that might look like. Other opportunities, pending approval from the Executive Steering Committee, there is a Highway Cover Coordinating Committee, which we call the HC3. And you can look to one of the other documents I sent to you. Our team provided kind of a glossary of terms. So the HC3 is a group that coordinates the efforts of the Independent Cover Assessment Team. And we would love to have a member of the HAAB participate in those ongoing conversations to help oversee the work of the Independent Cover Assessment Team. And we'll be sharing more information with you as that develops and as we get approval from the Executive Steering Committee. Next slide, please. With that, I would like to go to Mr. Andrew Campbell, because I know he had his hand up and I said that I would get back to you. Please unmute yourself. I'd love to hear your question and engage with the rest of the group.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. It's more of a comment / question for ODOT. I know this is the first meeting, but in the future, when we talk more about the land impacts and opportunities, I'm hoping that we have more visuals like we did on slide 23 of the other land impacts of the other covers, but then also the other crossings as well. Because I know on slide 23, it's just give an example of one highway cover, which makes sense. This is the first meeting. But in the future, I hope we can have time to really digest the other impacts of the other highway covering and crossings to really provide more input on that community connection that ODOT is asking for. So that's more of a comment, so thanks.
Great, thank you. And I believe that we'll get deeper into that with the work of the Independent Cover Assessment Team. Yes, look forward to having that conversation with you. I know Mr. Edwards had a comment or question earlier. I'd like to go back to him.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me. And I thank everyone else for being here as well, and the team that's been working trying to make this happen. I have some concerns though as well. I'm 71 years old, and I get concerned because we get called late to the table or late to the parade when the parade has already left, and that concerns me. And what concerns me even greater is, again, like I'm 71 years old, and we have young people that live in this community. I'm talking about 18 and under, that certainly are going to be in this community a lot longer than I'm going to be. And they should have a voice and a place in this decision making, and they should have some input into this as well. They're the ones that are going to be here when most of us are gone. And so we're going to be trying to give input and design to something that they're going to have to live with and have no say-so in how it's done and how it's coming about. So I would hope that there's some efforts looking at some of the young people that are in this community that certainly would have some input, and they need to also understand and see how things are done, the processes about these things, because they don't know, and they don't need to find out by happenstance. They need to know because they were involved in it. And they've got some folks here that would be excellent mentors for them that would help them through this process. So going forward, that we've got some young people that are intelligent, they have vision, they have a different focus than we do. And like I say, they're the ones that are going to have to be living in this environment. And that's what I'm concerned about. I'm also concerned that, you know, this is more of a transportation issue, but I think we've got this upside down. The decision maker should be the community, not the people that work for the community, that are on the payroll for the community. And that needs to be turned around, because the way I feel about it, I'm a taxpayer, and everybody that works for the government I'm their boss, because I pay for them to be there where they're at. And that attitude of service needs to go a lot further than what it's gone and what it's been going to. So that folks understand that when you're working for a citizen, that you listen to that citizen as if that's your boss, because they are your boss, and you understand that their input is important to you and it has value. And but that's not the way that most folks think today, but that needs to change. I would hope that there's some art in this as well. And I would hope that the art would reflect the historic and history and the heritage of Albina. I would hope that there's an interactive museum that's financed as well, so that our young people can go into those museums and see the history and know something about the history. I would hope that there's an educational piece, a place where they can go and learn and seek whatever they want to seek when in regards to a career. And so those are the things that I think this has to be a comprehensive thing, because too often we have a narrow, myopic concept of what something is, and we don't expand it for our young people. And it needs to be expanded for them, and they need to have input into this. So I just wanted to share that, and because that, like I say, it greatly concerns me when, like I say, we're called in late, and we don't have any decision making to go along with this. All we're is advisory, and that's it. And I don't see anybody on here that's younger than 18. That greatly concerns me. So thank you.
Thank you for that, for those comments. Yeah, I appreciate that. I see Ms. Sharon Gary Smith over there acknowledging, and do you have something you wanted to share or add to this conversation?
I can say thank you again. I had great hesitancy, and I don't mind sharing that, because I think I am a legacy child. When the land, my parents' homes were taken, one by Emmanuel and one by the Memorial Coliseum. And so I have that history. I have, of course, lived beyond that history, but I really am touched by the honesty and the truthfulness about serving, but also calling to question something that is so familiar to us. I appreciate the staff who's present, but ODOT does not have a good taste in the mouth of our community, historically or currently. I know they're trying things, I know we're trying to input, but I think it's difficult to sit honestly and carefully and be accountable to the community without being able to express the other side of our appearance. So that the facade of being present, it's more than that. There's the emotional, there's the cultural, there's the historical, and I haven't seen a lot yet. And I'm hopeful for this, that it won't be a lot of performative act and rhetoric, because we could build something incredible with the amount of air that has actually already been unloosed on our community. So I'm glad to hear others, Keith and others. I wasn't sure. One, if you needed me here, if I needed to be here, and knowing that I speak what I see and say, I did not know if there was a place for me to be here. So and when I was interviewed, I thought by the time they finish reading the scanner, they will not miss me not showing up tonight. I'm being very honest, because people are being transparent. I don't need to sit in another place. I'm old enough and have enough accolades. I don't need any more of that. I need action, and I need my community to be respected and participate as influencers and decision makers, not inputters. There is a difference. I learned that as a child. And so I appreciate Keith, with all of you, Dr. Richard, who are saying, and we're seeing ourselves in this space right now. I would hope that gets carried back, because this is just a project of ODOT. But how ODOT looks and operates still looks the same. So I hope that this project work can influence the ODOT and the larger. And I know Dr. Holt, I know Erica, I know their thinking, or at least I know enough of it to know that this is only a small piece of ODOT. I'd love to see how they define restorative justice because I haven't seen it. I'd like to know how they come up with restorative justice when I don't see any evidence. And so I hope that this project can contribute to and move that. And I'm willing to be counted on both sides of the table. Thanks.
Yes, we need you and thank you. I'm so glad that you said yes. We need accountability. We need authenticity. And I shared with the group earlier today, it's a great group. And I hope that there is the same excitement when we have to speak the truth in love to power to shift the system. So thank you. Thank you for that. Dr. Richard, I see your hand raised.
Thank you so much. If my colleagues will indulge me with one more question. I have about 30 questions. I know I ain't gonna get to all 30 of them tonight. And I want to thank my seasoned community elders for their leadership and their guidance as well. There was a word mentioned, and I want to let Brendan know I'm not picking on him tonight, but my daddy taught me to listen to words. So I agree with Ms. Sharon Gary Smith that, you know, I would have loved for there to be some type of restorative process, as Mr. Edwards said, instead of sort of coming in at the end. But be that as it may, I said yes, and my yes is a yes. Another question I have for you, Brendan, you said that this project would reconnect the community. Which community will be reconnected?
So I was unmuting there. Well, that's where this board comes in. We, you know, while I've had my experiences in public service, partnering with some of the people on the screen today, that community isn't for us to define as a government agency of this identity that does not know. What we're doing here is different. What we're doing here is Erica said, is kind of historic for this agency. That's why I wanted to be a part of it. So I don't think it's for this project or for me or for the agency to define the community. It's for the community to define. Obviously, it's a transportation project, but we feel like it can do more. We feel like we can create a table that can create partnerships that can go to places that we don't even know where the complete potential of yet. So that's my answer, Dr. Richard. I wouldn't be as presumptuous to try to define the community other than understanding the history of the past and historic connections to the albino community. So
if I may
hope that doesn't seem like I was.
No.
Doctor.
If I may offer this, right? I think we need to be very careful with language, right? Because when we start this project by calling it historic, that means the community I grew up in is a memory. And that's why I made the comment earlier that this has some sort of a familiarity with the dome that's placed in Dawson Park that was once a part of another building in North Portland before individuals and entities came in and took away houses to build. And so this is why I just want to make sure as I serve here that I understand the language. So when someone says we want to reconnect this to the community, well, the community that I once knew was a hustling, bustling, Black African-American community that was self-sufficient, that was resilient, and we had everything we needed, and our dollar stayed in our community for a long time. So I'm just trying to get a feel, right, for the language. That's all I'm trying to do here. I'm not casting any aspersions. I'm not casting any blame. I just want to make sure I understand what folks are saying when they tell me we want to reconnect this to the community. Lastly, I'll say what came to mind was, how can you reconnect it to a community that no longer lives in the area that was taken from them through gentrification and other laws that were set in place i.e. redlining. So thank you for that. I appreciate your answer. Miss Erica and my colleagues, I have to log off and go to another meeting with my job, but I want to thank everybody, and I'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your presence here and understand your commitment. We'll see you at the next meeting. To me, this is a perfect segue. I will go to our third pastor in the room. We have Dr. Richard and then Pastor Richard Probasco, but I am going to segue into the values discussion with Dr. Stephen Holt, who I am honored to serve with in Tri-Excellence. Dr. Holt.
Thank you, Erica. Great conversation, everybody. Before I get going, Serena, you had brought your video back on, and it looked like you were about to say something specifically related to, and in my mind, it could have just been me, but specifically related to restorative justice. Were you going to make mention of any of that?
Sorry, no, I wasn't. I just turned it on.
Okay, all right. So let me kind of contextualize how the project values came to be. Brendan spoke to it at the beginning in his introduction about the possibilities associated with this project. Each of us know what happened here in the community. I'm native to the city. My parents also lived in Vanport and then in Lower Albina, et cetera, et cetera. My mother and aunt lived at 408 North Monroe when Legacy or Emmanuel expanded. So a product of displacement, a product of flood, a product of it, all those things associated with it. When this opportunity came, the recognition really beyond what the values are trying to articulate and identify was that this is about people, and this is about the impact on people. That this is about people who were displaced, who were devalued, who were dismissed. That this is about people who were overrun and overlooked. This specific work is in reflection to how I-5 came to be. And if I-5 is going to be done and done differently, we have to own what transpired. When we were initially contacted, when I was initially contacted and talked about this work, it was very clear in our articulation and communication that if it's just about facilitation, if it's just about strategy, if it's just about doing the things that fit into the specifics of what Tri-Excellence does, then we would not be involved. But if this is about being very intentional, very thoughtful, and if this is about risking the lift and the load to do work differently and to positively impact the people who've been negatively impacted for pretty much the duration of our existence in the state, then I'm all in, we're all in. And out of that became the need to identify some things that would anchor this work. If that's going to be the truth with how we approach this work, we need to anchor this work. We need to anchor this work in some very intentional language, very intentional commitments, very intentional aims with objectives. And that's what drove the project values. If you go to the next slide, please. I would encourage everyone in your packet, you have where the values are referred to, you have the ability to click on it's highlighted, and it will take you into the background of each of these. I will not spend time on them expanding around them tonight, but I do want to identify them. Restorative justice is really the first and foremost value that is being supported by the Executive Steering Committee. Now, the Executive Steering Committee is really the committee, and I'll talk about the interaction between the other two in just a moment, but it's the committee that is going to be the kind of last bastion before recommendation to the OTC. And so the Executive Steering Committee, it's necessary that they be the ones that would endorse how this work is going to happen. And these values were stood up and supported by them, which then informs how each other committee will function and operate. Restorative justice means looking for, in essence, being committed to creating opportunities, pathways, accesses that are going to elevate the historically harmed community, the African Americans, and create spaces and pathways and ways for them to benefit. Mobility focus is in regard to all of the transportation connectivities. And again, I won't spend time to elaborate. I'll encourage us to read it. Community input and transparent decision-making is about doing business different. April mentioned it earlier, that this is about making sure that it's a feedback loop. It's not just one-way conversation. And to tap into what Mr. Edwards was saying, and I appreciate your comment, how do we connect and make sure it's multi-generational? I think that's what these values are speaking into, and there will be some specific processes, outcomes, and objectives associated with doing it. This is a multi-generational opportunity, even as Mr. Modica identified early in the meeting, that this is for generations to follow. These values are to support that very thoughtfulness, which brings us to climate action and improved public health. The hope is to be very intentional, very thoughtful, very specific, very strategic in how this work is done, but more than how and more than what, it's about why this work is being done. And it's about the people who've been impacted. Next slide, please. So then the project governance, you've seen this earlier. I want to highlight the areas that are similar in color, kind of the purplish color. The Executive Steering Committee, the Community Oversight Advisory Committee, and the Historic Albina Advisory Board. Let me talk just briefly a little more about the Historic Albina Advisory Board. We thought it extremely necessary to bring together voices of people who lived in Albina, who know the experience of Albina, who grew up on the streets, who walked the streets, who lived in the environment, because you know better than anyone else what was authentic, what was real, and what has been lost. And so super excited about each of you that have said yes and have stepped into this space and are willing to risk, along with Tri-Excellence and other consultants, to do work differently, risk our reputation, risk our name, risk our effort and our energy to do something significant. And because of that, the Executive Steering Committee that I facilitate, along with this group that Erica facilitates, and then Janelle Bell, who will be talking in just a moment, facilitates the Community Oversight Advisory Committee. Our strategy is to bring some sense of seamless cohesion, of collaborative effort, to make sure that we are working in one aim with one voice. While each committee has its own specific work and specific responsibility, as you see it outlined, the Executive Steering Committee being that last committee for recommendation to the OTC. It's our strategy that what we do collaboratively, and we do it together for the sake of making sure that our community benefits. Because at the end of it all, it isn't our names per se that matters. It isn't any of our personal accolades. It's that what we do in terms of legacy benefits generations coming. Next slide, please. So the Executive Steering Committee, it receives acts upon advice from the board to provide high-level guidance to and advises the OTC on decisions, the Oregon Transportation Commission, on decisions related to the project's design, construction, and community partnerships. So the Executive Steering Committee will receive the recommendations from the HAAB and from the COAC, Community Oversight Action Committee, and then we'll take that information, process it, and we will do it collaboratively, and then make the final recommendations to the Oregon Transportation Commission. So those are the kind of the oversight around the values. I should say this, I'm going to be actively engaged in our meetings, as Erica is with the Executive Steering Committee, since we are a tandem team. So we will have time to talk deeper into values. We'll have time to examine how those values then inform the work, and figure out ways to be really purposeful in making sure that the people who've been impacted negatively have an opportunity to see some real lasting positive outcomes. Yes. With that being stated, let me pass it on now and introduce Janelle Bell. And Janelle is the facilitator for and strategic advisor for the Community Oversight Action Committee. Janelle.
Well, thank you, Dr. Holt, and good evening, leaders. It's so great to see so many of you, friends, mentors, to all come together and really, frankly, hold ODOT accountable to achieving the results that we know are possible, and we know that have not always been done when it comes to major public works projects. So that's the opportunity. As referenced, I am the facilitator for the Community Oversight Advisory Committee. The Community Oversight Advisory Committee is a cross-section of individuals representing both folks from the trades community, from workforce community, from minority contractor community, and across the board. And the purpose of COAC, as we refer to it, is to really ensure that the project is built in a fashion that is reflective of our community, that we are meeting our DBE goals, but not just staying at our DBE goals, but that we are actually achieving much greater than that. Just for information, I'm facilitator, but we have technical staff. We have Amber Ontiveros, who I think is going to introduce herself real quickly, as well as Andre Ba. Those two staff consultants are really rolling up their sleeves, working with CMGC to ensure that the guidance of COAC is implemented. So we will look forward to coming before this body in the future with some of the work that will be coming out of COAC. COAC right now is rolling up their sleeves with the CMGC. That's a contractor who has recently been named by ODOT to really develop their diversity action plan, subcontracting plan, to make sure that when the project is actually advanced, we're working with firms in our community, and frankly, we're identifying workforce opportunities. This is a huge potential catalyst as we think about a recession of workforce opportunity. And COAC's job and charge is to hold the contractor and frankly ODOT accountable to making sure that the project is reflective of the community that we serve, that we have folks from our community actually working on the project, and that we are actually utilizing firms from our community. So that's the long and short. It's the construction workforce side of the equation, and we'll be working real closely with the HAAB. So Amber, I don't know if you want to chime in with anything, but that's the long and short.
Yeah, hi everyone. This is Amber Ontiveros. So I just want to thank you. A few of you I haven't seen for 10 years. I just want to give a shout out to Miss Sharon, Keith. I haven't seen y'all in 10 years. So it's like a thrill. Yes, I'm older, I'm grayer, I'm not as thin, but I'm still awesome. And I'm just really excited to see y'all. So just 1 second about the CMGC procurement. And I just want to give you a taste of the vision around the DBE and the workforce program. So just think about 20 years ago with the Interstate Max project, which was also this type of procurement method, which was a CMGC procurement method, which allows a much more innovative methods to procure DBEs. And that's what this procurement method is. And it's one of the first times that ODOT has used this type of method. As Janelle said, there is an oversight role of the Community Advisory Committee, COAC. Within the specification that we developed through direct engagement with the community and specifically from COAC identifying elements, these directly came from the COAC, which is there is a DBE goal range of 18 to 22%, a 20% apprenticeship goal. There is a 25% minority male, 14% minority female targets. There is, of course, an acceptable worksite program to ensure that people of color and women feel safe, and that there is an anti-discrimination program on this project. There is a mini CMGC program that is similar to some of the things that had been done on interstate, as well as a technical assistance program. And I bring that back to the interstate project because if you recall, that project resulted in $35 million going into the local community. So this is around $150 million. So I want to give you a flavor to think about this. So we will be back to talk to you on an ongoing basis, and it's really lovely to see all of you again.
Amber, thank you for that. Before we move into kind of our comment section, I want to introduce to you Gina Woolley and Nolan Leinhart. They are working with our independent cover assessment team, and they're going to share briefly about their role and how they will be engaging this board to help them progress their work. So Gina and Nolan, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you, Erica. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. I'm here representing ZGF Architects, that is leading the independent cover assessment team. It's a pretty large team, but Gina and I are here today. Gina will be our head of facilitation and engagement. You will hear more from her than you will hear from me in general. But we just wanted to provide a brief introduction to our work today. We are responsible as a group for developing 3 independent cover concepts. And we're really looking to you to help us figure out how those concepts can best serve the community vision, community needs. And obviously, we know that there have been a lot of conversations that have happened to date. Some of you have participated in them, other community members have participated in them, but we're going to make time to make sure that we have a strong and accurate understanding of what those needs are and what the scenarios might be. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Erica mentioned earlier that there is a highway cover coordinating committee. It is more of a staff-based coordinating committee of the public agencies that are involved in this project. We're really excited that you're now on board because you will help us to get a more frequent voice of the community, since representing community vision through these scenarios is our main job. So we'll walk through a little bit of what we've been asked to do with the limited time we have here today. Next slide. And next slide after that. So there's 3 questions that we've been asked to answer. The first is, how can this project serve community aspirations on the highway covers and areas immediately adjacent to the highway covers within the area of potential impact as defined within the environmental assessment? And then the second question is, what modifications to the current design and configuration of the highway covers would be needed to reflect a broader community vision for development of the project area? And then finally, we'll be asked to evaluate the other architecture, engineering, and other considerations that may help the economic development and growth potential that are consistent with the community's vision. So that's sort of the broad scope. Next slide. There are some ways that we've been asked to focus our initial scenarios. So we will be evaluating the base case, which is represented in the environmental assessment. And then soon we will be developing with community feedback 2 scenarios. The first of which is limited to that area of potential impact that I just described. And the second may extend beyond. So that'll be a nice form of comparison between those 2. Once those have been articulated, there is a provision that allows the ESC, based on community feedback, to direct us to study a third. And they would come up with the criteria for what would be in that third concept. So eventually we will have 3 new scenarios, which can be compared to one another and compared to the base case. and then a recommendation may be made to the Oregon Transportation Commission if there's a promising pathway that should be taken. Next slide. So this is a very, very high level diagram of the way our process works, but I think the important thing to highlight about it is that it's focused on 3 work sessions. Each work session involves engagement with your committee, the HAAB, engagement with the ESC, and engagement with community workshops so that a broad range of community participants can participate with emphasis on the African American community. I would like to hand it over at this time to ask Gina to say a little bit more about the nature of that community engagement and how we're anticipating generating and serving community vision through this process.
Thank you, Nolan. It's great to be in the room with all of you. I know so many of you, and it's wonderful to see your faces in the new year and to be partnering with you to do this work. I've heard a lot of comments tonight about people coming to the table late. I can tell you, related to our work, you aren't late to the table, and you are critical to helping to shape the vision. So we are going to be engaging with you intensely over the next 6 months, because that's the time frame that you can see that our work needs to occur in. And we are going to be relying on your comments. There's a lot of the questions that were asked tonight that will be factored right back into our engagement process. I mean, the kind of questions about what about all the land surrounding the area? How can that be factored into the vision? What kind of plans and partnerships can be developed? Keith talking about youth and youth participation. We are actively reaching out to community organizations that represent youth. And the other thing that I'd like to say is we have just started our community outreach literally last week, and we have a master list of organizations. I'd like to get that distributed to the committee members. And if you have additional people, stakeholders that you want to put on the list for us to do outreach to for our community workshops, we would welcome your input to the master list. It's a pretty extensive list. As many of you know, I've been involved in the community for 60 years and about 55 years, and I've really done a lot of work in the community. So I know most of the stakeholder groups, and particularly the ones that have been around for a long time. And so I think we have a pretty comprehensive list, but I'm sure with the illustrious group we have in the room that we've missed folks, and that there are others that can be added to the list. So just quickly about our workshop, how we are organizing the workshops and our community participation. We have divided, we are going to have 80 participants in each of these workshops. So we need to have a limited number of people when you're doing virtual workshops. It's very important that we want active engagement, dialogue, participation, and input. And we can't do that with a large number of folks. We actually will be dividing that 80 into 2. We'll have 2 opportunities during every work session period. So one during the week and one on the weekends, to make sure that we can accommodate people's schedules. We are going to weight those participants. About 50% of those participants are going to come from organizations, businesses, and residents, and displaced residents of individuals who have historic ties to Albina, who have lived here, grown up here, whether they still live here or not. We are looking for participants who understand what we've all been through in this community in the last 70 years and can really provide insight and vision and ideas about what it's going to take when we talk about restorative justice, what it's going to take to essentially make this place feel like it belongs to us, and again, that this is our community again, and that we have a hub, a cultural and emotional hub that is materialized in the environment. I think that many of our institutions are still here. Churches and social organizations and service organizations, social justice organizations. And what we need to do is make people feel by just being in the environment that this is their environment and their community as well. So I heard one of you asked the question about are these covers going to connect the community for? And those are the kind of questions we're going to explore. You know, who do you want them to connect this community for? What kinds of elements do you want in, you know, the art? Keith talked about the art and you know, essentially having you know, an interactive museum and those kind of things. We want to collect all those ideas, and then we are going to have a set of values that outcomes that are related to the theme areas that the ESC has set up, the restorative justice, the mobility, and those alternatives. Ultimately, you'll decide what those, you'll give us input and recommendations about what outcomes are most meaningful and most important to weigh our alternatives against, and then we'll be measuring those alternatives, and ultimately you'll be making a recommendation up to the ESC for what alternatives you support for the design of the cover. I think the other thing that's important to say to this group, because of the concerns that you've raised tonight, that our team is independent of ODOT. We are being managed by the ESC. So we are being managed by the, you know, by the collective stakeholder groups, and we are being influenced and hope to be guided by your input and your ideas and your concerns. So we've got great work to do, and I'm excited for the places that we can go and the opportunities we can create together. So thank you.
Thank you, Gina, so much. I would love to open up the floor for conversation, questions, comments. We're coming in on our time. Pastor Probasco, I would love to hear your thoughts.
You know, I have so many. I'm just going to write them down. I think I'll present them at our next meeting because I've assimilated a lot of information. I have a lot of questions more than I have comments. Because, and some of them were set around the very fact of the people that are at the table, and I respect all of them. However, facts that I know about of people that are in the community now or who have left the community, but remotely come back to the community to serve in the community, but don't even live in the community anymore, that are leaders that are at this point, there's a lot of things that are going around in my head. So rather than start a conversation that will take a lot more comment, I'm gonna leave it alone. But I want to let you know, I've got plenty to say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. There are others I haven't heard from yet. Mr. Talton, any thoughts? Mr. Modica?
I'm just highly interested in the opportunity to process and digest what I have read from the screenshots today and what has been sent to us, and what has been said. Something that strikes me though is that with the 3 different committees, how did you go about vetting who you wanted on each particular committee? I think, you know, when it comes down to us, ODOT must show proof of life. They must show proof of work. My comment earlier about a 100-year legacy, this is so very important. Off the top of my head, it was mentioned the EIS was done. Well, was it done all the way to the interstate bridge? You know, crickets. What about the new crossing over the Columbia? Crickets. What happens if there is no agreement from community on how this shall be done? Crickets. Will it not be done at all? I've heard the covers referred to as lids. I've been all over the country and halfway around the world. I know that seismically safe structures can be built over highways to support housing, businesses, roads, recreation. I want to know from the start, with respect to the highway covers, what is ODOT's intention? If it's not to do that, this is a waste of time.
Great question. Megan, I would love for you maybe to chime in here in regards to the highway cover conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, Kevin, I agree with you that if we didn't have sort of an intention of learning from the community on what the desires were for the highway covers, it would be a waste of time. But I want to acknowledge and lean into that, and that's exactly why we're here. The work that we've asked the independent highway cover team to look at is strategically sort of untethering itself from the planning work of the past to first and foremost identify what's that community vision and what does it take to get there. So from my perspective as the project director, everything's on the table right now in terms of the highway cover conversation and potential outcomes, and looking forward to learning from the independent team sort of the avenues to get to particular development scenarios.
So can I jump in real quick? And I apologize, I'm late. I'm Andrew Clark. I was double booked and we're now in system in terms of my calendar, but where are you guys at in terms of contracts, decisions for design? Just where is this whole process at right now? Where we're going?
Sure. So Andrew, it's great to meet you. I'm Megan Channel, the project director with ODOT, and excited to have you be part of this board. So we just hired our CMGC contractor, so construction management general contractor, Hamilton Sunk Joint Venture in association with Raymore. Their contract was executed in November of 2020, so just a few months ago. And so we are only at the 20% design phase for the project. And so over the upcoming months, the first thing that we're working on with our contracting partner is really around schedule, cost estimate, developing the diversity and subcontracting plan that gets to your question specifically about what are those opportunities. Also looking at early work package opportunities. So the future contracting opportunities are to come. We really just have started to frame up that work and the approach moving forward.
So you're in schematic design phase. Is that where you're tracking at right now? And can we get a schedule of how you're moving forward? So if you've hired a contractor, that means that you've also have a designer, you also have all these things in place. So it would be good for me at least to catch up on where that's at and kind of where the vision's at and where the decisions are going to be made at that particular point in time as you get to DD and CD phase.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can share more information on that. I know in the PowerPoint presentation from today, some of that information at a high level is shared in the design arc, just around timeline of the design progression. You know, again, we're at the 20% mark right now. We know the footprint, we know the scope elements, but 30% is where we really get into establishing the design concepts. And then so that's happening later this year. And then from there into 2022 and 2023 is where the refinement happens with construction kicking off in 2023.
And with the construction, are you guys doing, well, you've got Raymore and you've got somebody else, so you already have a construction partner. So it's
We
not going
have
to be bid.
we have the prime selected. So that's Hamilton Sunt joint venture, and they're working in association with Raymore. But we'll be looking, there's a number of subcontracting opportunities that will be coming as part of this as well.
Raymore is, the prime is the group, what's the group again?
It's, yeah, Hamilton Sunt, a joint venture.
Okay, so, and then Raymore is providing some contracting work with them in a partnership.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. All right.
And Andrew, we'll have a lot of opportunity to engage with the design team on this project, as well as the independent cover assessment team, and bringing forth, we've shared with them that plans and diagrams and those sort of things will be very beneficial.
I apologize, I'm late. I'm just jumping in
No.
asking questions. So
no worries at all. I just wanted to assure you that your concerns are being addressed, and that we are going to have a lot of opportunity, especially with your development experience, for you to engage with the design team. I wanted to jump to Mr. Talton because I saw him unmute for a moment, see if he had any comments. Did I miss Carl? Looks like I may have lost him. If he joins again, I'll give opportunity. I want to thank you all for your engagement. Natalie, if you would put the next slide up for me. So as you all can see, and as Pastor Verbasco said, there are a lot of questions, a lot of areas for us to collaborate and discuss, a lot of information to be shared, and hopefully positive outcomes for the community. Next slide, please, Natalie. For this group, we have a very heavy lift moving forward, so I'm so grateful for your commitment to the process, for helping us to hold the agency accountable to the values that we've established for this project. Today was kind of an introduction to the work, orienting you all to me, to the project team, and moving forward, the independent cover team. We will be working very closely with the independent cover assessment team over the next 6 months. As Steve and Megan mentioned, out of those 6 areas involved in design in the project, the cover assessment is one of those areas, and it is our priority first. But there will be opportunity ongoing for us to engage in all of those other areas in relationship to the project design, the crossings, and the street improvements and the like. The project branding, as I mentioned, there'll be an opportunity for you all to weigh in there, as well as the early work packages that we were just talking about with Andrew and the CMGC, and our collaboration with the Executive Steering Committee and with the Community Oversight Advisory Committee in regards to the DBE and workforce. Megan, were there things that you would like to share as well in regards to our next steps?
No, Erica, I think frankly you've covered it quite well, and just really again looking forward to the work that we have ahead with this group. We see April raising her hand, so she likely has something related to communications. So jump in, April.
Yeah, just really quickly, I want to express great respect for all of the questions that were provided here today by the committee. Leslie, I heard you, and I want to get you the information that you're seeking. Ms. Sharon Gary Smith, I absolutely saw your piece in the scanner, or your quote in the scanner, and I thought I really want to do that authentic engagement with you that you asked for. And I wanted to let you all know that we will be working on addressing all of your questions. The goal is to get answers to you prior to the next meeting. So Mr. Modica, I heard your questions as well.
Hey, Erica,
Yes.
if you don't mind, would it be possible for us to get a group photo of our board members kind of commemorating our first meeting here? So rather than capturing you at a random time with a screenshot, it might be better to have folks turn their camera on and you kind of I'll look at the camera and do a screenshot. Would the board be amenable to that?
I just changed. All right.
Well, you're all over the public anyway. Smile.
Late to be shy about public.
Indeed.
Right. Well, okay. So turn your cameras on, and I'll do kind of a 1, 2, 3, and do a print screen here. And if folks on the support team could do the same, 'cause you're probably far more technically savvy than I am, that would be wonderful. All right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thanks, team.
Cool.
Thank you.
Photo to me too.
Yes, I'll make sure everybody gets a copy of the glamour shot here.
Wonderful.
I want to say thank you to all of you for your commitment, not just tonight, but over the breadth and width of your career to this community. I am honored to serve with you in this capacity and to help move us towards outcomes. I appreciate your trust and ability in me. For those of you all who have known me since I was knee-high to a grasshopper, and for allowing me to help lead us in this effort. You all, many of you in this room are mentors and people who I have looked up to my entire life, even behind the scenes. So I am appreciative of your time, of your wisdom, of your commitment to us. And we are grateful for your time. I realize that this is a lot of investment and that you have other things. So I am grateful to that. I heard you, Mr. Edwards. I am excited about the youth voice and finding a way to incorporate that into our work. I also am excited about your saying the mentorship word. We didn't want to spring it on all of you, but this is a lovely opportunity for those young activists and community leaders and upcoming voices to participate and to glean from your wisdom. So thank you. Dr. Holt, if you would close us out, I would love that. I look forward to working with all of you and getting you information. I'll be scheduling some time individually with each of you just to address some concerns in between meetings, just some short conversations so that we can work through some of these issues. So thank you.
Well, again, we express our appreciation. Thank you, Erica. Wonderfully done to take us through the process tonight. I mentioned we worked collaboratively, so you will be seeing both of our faces, and we want to invite you into the Executive Steering Committee meetings as well. You're also invited to COAC meetings to attend those, and we will get schedules out to you. We will be meeting in 3 weeks. This is kind of a rapid pace. We're catching up on quite a bit of work. I appreciate your words again, Mr. Edwards, to say that oftentimes we get brought to the table when the meal is just about gone, not even asked to prepare, but oftentimes it's just about gone. Well, the truth here is we are coming in a little late, but we're being brought into pace to catch up. So today is rare that we're ending early, so celebrate that, note it, identify it, because we're going to probably be pushing that 7 o'clock hour on a regular basis. There is much to do. Our hope is to not give you the fire hydrant experience so that you're just overwhelmed with a plethora of information, but the hope is to get vital content to be pulled apart, dissected, thought about, examined, and then get good feedback in a timely manner. So you can anticipate that path and that pace. Until then, I'm going to leave you with a thought. And that thought is this. Our world is different. Our world is significantly different. It's different socially. It's different economically. It's different politically. It's a different world. It's a different time. The interesting thing that one of the things coronavirus has stood up is how to value things that really matter. I think many of us would identify and say that for those of us who have lived on the side of being impacted people, we learned a long time ago to value the things that really matter. To me, the environment we're living in elevates the reality of why this movement, this activity, this kind of investment is so important. We right now have an opportunity to capture kind of the wind and direct it in ways that will influence the next generation. So I want you to ponder that. Many of you already know it, but just think about it as we're involved in this lift and we're involved in this risk. Thank you so much. Take care of yourselves. Be safe. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Good evening.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Bye.